My name is Karen Nolan, and I turned 35 last week. You'd think after 3 decades of disappointments, I'd stop expecting anything from my family, but hope dies slowly, and grief is patient. That birthday was supposed to be the first time we all sat at the same table in months. I even told myself foolishly that maybe this year would be different. It wasn't. I live alone in the quieter outskirts of Boulder, Colorado, in a small 2-bedroom apartment with a mountain view that I hardly have time to appreciate. I work at a modest tech company, not glamorous, not life-changing, but steady enough to keep a roof over my head, and, until recently, steady enough to keep roofs over other people's heads too. That's the part no one warns you about. Being the responsible one in a family doesn't make you loved. It makes you useful. My mother used to say I was the strong one. What she meant was I was the one who fixed everything, the one who paid late bills, covered unexpected rent, handled their internet outages from my apartment, and co-signed loans when no one else would trust them. When Dad lost his job in 2020 and my younger sister Tiffany moved back home, just for a little while, I stepped in. Of course I did. And like all bad habits, it never stopped. The birthday dinner this year, my birthday dinner, was the first time I'd seen any of them in months. I shaved. I washed my hair twice. I wore the soft green sweater my boyfriend bought me last Christmas. I even brought a nice bottle of wine and a gift for Mom. Stupid, right? Still trying to earn a seat at my own table. When I pulled into their driveway, I froze. Sitting there, glowing like a trophy polished for a parade, was a brand new hybrid SUV. Silver. Shiny, expensive, and definitely not mine. Tiffany practically jumped out of the front door when she saw me, her nails sparkling like she'd painted them just to wave in my face. "You're late," she said, flipping her hair. "We started without you." Then she pointed behind her. "Oh, like it? Mom and Dad got it for me. Early birthday present. Isn't it cute?" Cute. Cute was a puppy. Cute was a coffee mug. This was a down payment on a house with wheels. I swallowed whatever acidic thing tried to climb up my throat. If I reacted, I'd be labeled dramatic, jealous, ungrateful. We walked in. I sat quietly between Mom and Dad, pretending the food didn't taste like betrayal. Small talk floated around me. Church gossip, Tiffany's stressful part-time marketing job, Dad's recent golf score, even though they hadn't even opened the Christmas cards I sent last year. Then came the moment that split something inside me. Dad raised his glass. "A toast," he said proudly, "to Tiffany, for always being there, for being such a blessing." They clinked glasses, they beamed at her, they didn't look at me. Then Mom handed me my gift, wrapped in cheap red paper that tore too easily. Inside, a pair of rolled-up wool socks. "They're thermal," Dad said. "Since you bike to work, right?" "I bike to work because I pay half their mortgage. But sure, thermal socks." I felt something inside me snap, not loudly, but with a soft, devastating click, like a lock turning from the inside. I stood up, smiled politely, and said I had to make a call, and I walked out the door. I didn't leave dramatically. I didn't even slam it. I just left, got into my car, and sat there with my hands trembling on the steering wheel. That night at 11:43 p.m., I opened my laptop. Utilities, gas, water, electricity. All in my name, all set to autopay, all disable-able with a click. I clicked. Not out of revenge, out of clarity. The next morning, the blackout hit. They started calling 13 hours later. Mom first, then Dad, then Tiffany. Missed calls stacked like falling dominoes. A shaky video even popped up. Mom recording their dark kitchen with candles like a seance gone wrong. I didn't answer. Not yet. They didn't know the utility accounts had been in my name for 5 years. They didn't know I'd been paying because no one else would. They didn't know I'd stopped because no one even asked why I started. I opened a soda, sat at my small dining table, and watched each call roll in. Then, sometime that afternoon, Tiffany posted a picture online. Her and Dad grinning next to that SUV, the caption, "Still here, still family. Some people stay bitter." My thumb froze above the screen. Not because it hurt, though it did, but because it told me everything. This wasn't ignorance, this was intention. If they wanted to paint me as the bitter outsider, they could, but I wasn't going to play the role they wrote for me. I started digging. Old bank statements, shared accounts I'd forgotten existed, transactions I never authorized. It didn't take long. Dad had wired over small amounts, $60 here, $100 there, little leaks that added up to over $4,850 across 2 years. And the final insult? A $750 transfer to a car parts dealer under Tiffany's name the exact same week he told me they were barely surviving. My hands went cold. So this was the truth. They weren't drowning. They were spending. But I wasn't done. I reached out to my cousin Megan, who works in cybersecurity. She owed me a favor. Years ago, I helped her move across states, and she never forgot. I asked her to quietly check if anything suspicious had been done under my name. 3 days later, she called. Karen, someone tried opening a credit card using your social. And, wait, there's more. Someone requested a billing address change on your home internet account. The handwriting looks like your dad's, and the backup phone number listed is your mom's. I sat there on my sofa, heart beating slowly, steadily. I wasn't dealing with a struggling family. I was dealing with people who used the fact that I loved them. I started gathering it all. Screenshots of Tiffany's mocking posts, old messages from Dad asking for quick favors, voices recordings of Mom sighing, "You're doing better than your sister. You can help out Karen." Pieces of a puzzle that suddenly made perfect sense. I created a digital folder on my laptop. Title: What Family Cost Me. Every document, every receipt, every ugly truth. I wasn't planning to expose it. Not yet. First, I needed them to feel what life looked like without me. The house grew cold. The calls grew desperate. The manipulation became frantic. But part one of my story ends here, with me sitting alone in my apartment, illuminated by nothing but the glow of my computer screen, quietly realizing a devastating truth. I wasn't their daughter, I was their bank. And for the first time, I had closed the doors. Most people think the opposite of love is hate. They're wrong. The opposite of love is indifference. The numb, icy space where you finally stop bleeding. That's where I lived in the days after the blackout. My phone buzzed nonstop. Blocked numbers. Voicemails. Even Tiffany's ex-best friend texted me asking what drama I'd started. I ignored all of it. I stayed still, drinking my coffee slowly every morning, letting the silence stretch into something almost comforting. But silence without answers isn't peace, it's preparation. And I was preparing for war. 3 days after I shut off the utilities, I logged into the shared checking account I'd set up for my parents back when they cried on the phone, saying they didn't understand online bills. What stared back at me wasn't confusion, it was calculation. Small withdrawals, repetitive amounts, a rhythm of theft so familiar it felt almost intimate. Dad had been skimming money, tiny cuts over years, that added up to nearly $4,850. The kind of thing someone does when they assume you'll never notice, never check, never question. The kind of thing someone does when they think they own your forgiveness. And the more I dug, the more the story twisted. A week prior to their dramatic blackout meltdown, Dad had wired $750 to a car parts dealer under Tiffany's name. A dealer that specialized in custom add-ons. Custom add-ons for the brand new SUV sitting in their driveway. So while they told me the heater was failing and they were barely making it, Tiffany was personalizing her car like she was prepping it for a runway. I stared at the screen. For the first time in my life, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't angry. I was awake. That night, I opened the folder on my desktop, What Family Cost Me. I added the new screenshots labeled carefully. Dad, unauthorized withdrawals. Tiffany, wire transfer. Mom, passive messages. Then I opened a new subfolder. Identity theft attempts. Possible. My cousin Megan finally called back. I put her on speaker, notebook ready. Karen, are you sitting down? I am. Someone tried opening a credit card using your social. My pen froze midair. And there's more, she added. A request to change the billing address on your home internet account. The handwriting on the form looks weirdly similar to what you sent me on your dad's Christmas card. I closed my eyes. Backup contact was your mom's cell, she continued. It looks like they were trying to redirect everything back to their house. My breathing slowed, not panicked, measured. They weren't just using me, they were planning for it to last. Once Megan hung up, I sat in silence before whispering something I didn't recognize as my own voice. They wanted access, even after I said no. I pulled out old boxes, letters, receipts, emails from Dad asking for quick loans, messages from Mom like, "You're doing better than your sister, Karen. Don't be selfish." I reread them with new eyes. This wasn't a drowning family grasping for help. This was a family holding onto a lifeline they believed was theirs by birthright. And I had been the lifeline. Hours passed. Screenshots multiplied. Venmo transactions. Bank statements. Digital photos. Voicemails. Including one from Tiffany. Karen, are you really being childish over socks? Grow up. Her voice, sugary and smug, played loudly through my apartment. I saved it. Around midnight, I found something that made me push back from the desk, heart thumping. An email from Mom's account, dated 6 months ago. Subject line, handling expenses, body text. Karen always ends up covering it. She won't even notice. Don't worry. A punch delivered in Helvetica font. I stared at it, hands numb. They weren't struggling. They weren't desperate. They weren't trying to survive. They were strategizing. I added it to the folder. As I dragged the file over, I saw the growing list. SUV financing screenshot. Tiffany's vacation labeled under my card. Mom pretending to be me on a voicemail to update insurance. Dad withdrawing money from shared account. Bills automatically shifted into my name since 2020. Every file was a confession. The next morning, my apartment felt too quiet, too still, like the air itself knew something was about to change. At noon, Mom called again. Voicemail. Sweetheart, the landlord is threatening to evict us. We don't have heat. Just call us back, please. 2 hours later, Dad called. Karen, enough games. You've made your point. Tiffany's going through a tough time. We're all under stress. Just turn the utilities back on. Then we can talk. Talk. That word. The one they only used when they wanted something. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I printed everything. Every screenshot, every receipt, every typed word. The printer hummed like a quiet drum roll. Page after page spilled onto the tray, my life as evidence. I put them into a clean white envelope, then another, then another. I labeled them. Set A. Financial set. B. Identity misuse. Set C. Manipulation and messages. As I stacked them neatly, something in me settled. I wasn't preparing this for the police, not for a lawyer, not even for myself. I was preparing it for them. Because if they were going to look me in the eye and lie, I wanted proof waiting on the table between us. Cold, printed, undeniable truth. For once, I wanted them to sit in the dark. That night, I cooked dinner for myself. Pasta, nothing special, and kept the TV off. The folder sat on the counter, silent and heavy. I poured a glass of wine, set it beside the documents, and whispered, "You wanted a responsible daughter. You created one. Now you'll meet her." The next day, I packed a small bag, tucked the envelope under my arm, and drove toward my parents' house. Not to reconcile, not to fix anything, but to finish something that should have ended years ago. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 6:20 p.m., the sun melting behind the trees, like it didn't want to witness what was about to happen. The driveway was crowded. Tiffany's SUV took up the center like a silver monument to everything they valued more than me. I parked on the street. Not because there wasn't space, because I didn't need to be on their property more than necessary. The cheap bottle of wine knocked against the envelope tucked under my arm as I walked up the steps. My heartbeat was calm, steady, like I'd finally switched off a fire that had been burning inside me for years. Dad opened the door. His face fell when he saw me, like someone had told him the judge just ruled against him in a case he didn't even know he was on trial for. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply. I smiled, a small polite curve of my lips. "Came to celebrate Mom's birthday," I said. "Unless the party is invite only for the real family again?" His jaw twitched, but he stepped aside. The living room was full. Mom, Tiffany, cousin Karen, because of course she was here, ready to feast on drama like it was dessert. Everything looked normal on the surface. Cake on the table, soft music playing, the fake warmth of family gatherings. I placed the cheap bottle of wine on the counter and set the plain white envelope in the middle of the dining table. Tiffany's eyes locked onto it. "What's that?" she asked, tilting her head like a curious cat. "Some things I came across," I said. "Thought we could all take a look." Dad's eyes narrowed. Mom's fingers tightened around the cake knife. Karen leaned forward with predatory excitement. I sat down. Everyone else followed, tension thickening the air. Dad reached for the envelope first, opening it like it might explode. Inside were 3 documents. A credit card approval form under my name. My full legal name, not my signature. A receipt for a $1,550 smartphone, shipped to Tiffany's address, charged to my account. A printed email from Mom's account. One Tiffany left open on my iPad last Christmas. Karen always pays. She won't even notice. Dad's hands shook. Mom looked like she'd aged 10 years in 5 seconds. Tiffany rolled her eyes. "That's all? Karen, seriously, you're being dramatic," she said. I leaned back, quiet, controlled. Dad cleared his throat. "There must be some mistake." "Really?" I asked calmly. "What are the odds that every mistake benefits you?" Silence. Mom blinked rapidly, voice trembling. We were going through a rough time, honey. You always helped before. What changed? I met her eyes without flinching. What changed is I stopped pretending this was a real family. The room went still. I pulled another document from my bag and slid it across the table. A bank screenshot. A $750 wire transfer from the shared account, my account, to an auto shop under Tiffany's name. Tiffany's face went pale. I thought that was your extra card, she whispered. I was going to pay it back. I raised an eyebrow. When? Before or after your PlayStation purchase? Because that's in the folder too. She went silent. Mom sank into her chair like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. Dad just stared at the table, jaw tight, refusing to look at me. I reached into my phone and pressed play on a voicemail. Mom's voice filled the room, slightly shaky, pretending to be me as she tried to update my health insurance, listing Tiffany as a dependent. So, I said quietly, you really thought I wouldn't notice? Mom buried her face in her hands. No answer. Then I turned to Dad. Still want to pretend you didn't touch that shared account? Silence. He didn't even try to deny it. Tiffany snapped. You're tearing this family apart over some stupid bills and a phone. I felt my lips curl into a cold, humorless smile. No, I'm doing this because you spent years treating me like a debit card with a heart. You lied, you stole, and now you're angry I noticed. Then I dropped the final paper on the table, a handwritten list, titled, How to Slowly Shift Costs to Karen. Bullet point number 3, start putting bills in her name. She won't catch on. Mom gasped. Dad closed his eyes. Tiffany pushed back from the table so hard her chair screeched. Karen whispered, damn, under her breath. Dad finally spoke, voice cracking. You trying to tear this family apart? I stood up slowly. No, I said. You did that first. I'm just giving back what you gave me, all at once. I walked toward the door, grabbing my coat. As I reached the hallway, I paused and looked back at Dad. Oh, and keep the socks, I said softly. You'll need them when the bills show up. I left. I didn't drive home. I didn't have a plan. I just drove until the lights of the neighborhood disappeared behind me and the highway opened like a clean slate. I ended up at a cheap motel off the interstate. The room smelled like bleach and old carpets, but it was the first place in years where I felt air in my lungs. I lay down on the stiff mattress and let the quiet settle over me. The next morning, I turned on my phone. Dozens of missed calls, 5 voicemails from Mom, 2 from Dad, 9 messages from Tiffany, most of them angry, 1 begging. Then, 1 text from Tiffany. This isn't over. She was right, because 3 days later, Mom's card got frozen. Someone called my old landlord pretending to be me. Names shifted, addresses tampered with. Sloppy, desperate. So I severed the last routes, closed the shared bank accounts, terminated their auto drafts, removed my name from their lease, blocked their numbers, rewrote my will, redirected my trust fund to charity. Not out of spite, out of survival. My father once told me, family sticks together. He never said anything about family bleeding one person dry. A week after disappearing from their lives, I received one last voicemail from Dad, recorded at 2:13 a.m., his voice thick with alcohol. You think you're a hero now? You were supposed to stay broken. I played it twice, not because it hurt, because it was the most honest thing he ever said. They never saw me as a daughter, just someone useful. So I changed my number, new apartment, utilities and aliases, a second phone, no forwarding address. The old life ended quietly. I left them a single envelope by mail, no return address. Inside, a copy of the lease cancellation and a sticky note. Find a new safety net. Months passed. Silence grew roots. Not frightening, peaceful. Real closure didn't come from apologies or tears. It came from the realization that nothing was ever real to begin with. They still try to reach me online. Bitter captions, vague posts, indirect jabs. But I'm not thirsty for their approval anymore. I wake up now in a life that is mine. Quiet, clean, peaceful. In front of my new apartment door, I placed a doormat. It reads, "Not your emergency exit." And for the first time in my life, I believe it.